Battlefront 2015 is over a decade old and still looks amazing to this day. I've played this game so much growing up, and I think it's only fair I give this game its own deep dive. With a plethora of game modes and 4 DLCs to purchase, this game is absolutely full of content, and today I'm specifically honing in on the Heroes vs. Villains game mode, as that is what I have my absolute most time in. But I promise the other game modes are just as fun as Heroes vs. Villains. It's a shame that today the game averages about 100 daily players, so you're not really going to find many people playing the other game modes outside of maybe Walker Assault, but even then, you have to wait a really long time to find a game mode like that. As you can see, I've played more than enough of this game to have some sort of knowledge to share, most of the time being in my childhood or when I was, in COVID times or something like that. But I've played almost 1,000 hours in the game, so I can definitely talk about some of this. Anyway, trying not to draw this intro out any longer than it has to be, I'm essentially going to be going through some of the heroes and the soldier and a few other things that you'd mostly be using in Heroes vs. Villains. I'm going to be trying to rank them on a scale of S to F, so you can, if you decide to play the game, see what heroes are the best and what you might have to do, because really the only people that are left on this game have been probably playing it longer than I have, and a new person on this game it's really rough. One last little shameless plug here. If you don't mind, this is my most worked on video by far, and just dropping a like and subscribing would absolutely mean the world to me, man. I know you've heard it 1,000 times, but I won't hold you back anymore from the video. With that out of the way, we can start talking about some of the heroes. Each hero in this game has 3 abilities, along with kind of a bonus 4th. If you kill an enemy or damage a hero, it'll add to that. Luke's has extra speed, so the more enemies or more damage he does, he'll get faster, making him at the absolute fastest character in this game. Luke's right ability is a dash. So if you use it, you'll go dashing towards an enemy. It does damage to both troops and heroes. Usually it'll one-shot troops. It does a little bit, but not too much damage to heroes. And it is also good for mobility because you can look up and use it, dash up to where you gotta go, all that kind of thing. Luke's left ability is a force push, and unlike in Battlefront 2, if you force push a hero or like choke a hero or something like that, they don't really have a ragdoll animation or something like that, so the heroes will just kind of stumble or like not really react at all if they're blocking. It will, however, still work on the troops. It's just kind of interesting that they did it that way. Luke's main animation for swinging his lightsaber is just a simple left and right swing. It's not really anything special. Unlike Battlefront 2, they do it a lot differently, but this game still one-shots troops, and it's pretty good. Luke's middle ability has heavy swing. If you're fighting against like Vader or Palpatine, it breaks their block completely, meaning you can get a free swing or a free push or a free dash in on them, so that's pretty neat. As you can see here, I'm kind of looking around for the hero health pickup. I just picked it up. You, as a hero, don't really gain health naturally, so you have to look around for the hero health pickups, and other heroes that we'll get to also can drop health, which I just want to point out real quick. The only tier list I could find had both Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 in it, so just ignore everything like where the second Bossk is here. But anyway, Luke is without a doubt one of the best heroes in the first game, so I'm going to throw him at S, and for right now he's the top. He's also the worst, but that's where we're going to put him, S tier.
The things I do for that princess.
Han is the first blaster hero I'll be talking about, and he, just like Luke, has 3 abilities along with that special little power-up. Essentially, the special little power-up just means as the more kills he gets, he can shoot from a longer range and deal more damage more accurately, which is pretty good. Not the best, but it's decent. Han has 3 abilities, and his 3 abilities let him either shoulder rush, so if you press the left bumper, he will go for like a really fast sprint, and it'll do a lot of damage. Even if the enemy is blocking, it'll deal a lot of damage, which is pretty nice. His right ability lets him shoot kind of like a big explosive shot. It'll break the block of any hero that's blocking, or it'll kill any troop almost immediately. If you hold triangle, if you're playing on PlayStation, or Y on Xbox, I think, he'll go into a rapid blaster fire mode where pretty much as fast as you can shoot, he will shoot, which is really good for dealing damage if you like sneak up behind someone and you just gotta spam the trigger. It'll kill him pretty fast. So Han, being the second hero on the list, is probably not the greatest hero. I really don't think there's any bad heroes necessarily, but he is a little lackluster. Coming over to our tier list, like I said, Han is pretty good. I really don't think there's any terrible heroes that you can really choose in this game, but he wouldn't be my first pick. Once I get everyone out of the way, I'll kind of go for what I think the best matchups are. But for right now, I'm going to throw Han in B tier. Again, pretty solid, but I really wouldn't go for him unless you're like just way better than the other team. He's pretty fun to play, but I would stick with Luke for sure, and coming up, there'll be a few more good ones to pick. Leia's kind of interesting because by herself, I wouldn't say she's the absolute greatest hero. She has the ability to essentially heal other allies, like heroes specifically. She can throw down a health pickup. She also has the ability to throw down a shield, which can't be shot through unless using her left ability, called Trooper Bane, which will one-shot any troop and deal a decent amount of damage to heroes. The ability is really only useful if you're kind of camping in your shield and trying to shoot people from there. But Leia's heal is really good, especially if you can't access the other heal at the time, so if the enemy team is kind of holding it or already got it. It's just a nice secondary source, especially if you're actually being beneficial to the team and healing others. Leia's kind of middle ability gives everyone around her a buff, which lets them take less damage, which is just really good, especially if you're killing people and dealing damage. Leia's health ability is a little worse from what I've seen than the actual yellow ones. So if it's red, it's a little bit worse than the yellows. But it's still really good. Like, it still heals a decent chunk of health, which is really nice. Leia also does have a special ability, which is to let her spawn in bodyguards, which are essentially better versions of troops, but not quite heroes. The bodyguards can't quite heal, so any damage done to them is permanent. But they're really, really good because they spawn in with rocket launchers and their guns do more damage than the base troopers. So overall, I would say Leia is a pretty decent pick if you're trying to support your team. Leia's an interesting one because how useful she is really dependent on how good your team is, because they kind of have to know when to come back to you to heal, and your bodyguards have to be good at the game to fully utilize how good Leia is. But giving her the benefit of the doubt, like absolute best case scenario, I would say Leia is an almost must-have on the team, especially if you're playing like Luke or someone. You're going in there doing some damage and you take a little bit of damage, you got to come back and get health. Leia's just a really good team supporter. By herself, not the best, but if I'm playing Luke or I'm playing someone else, I would love a Leia on my team. And even if I don't get a hero that round, I would also love a Leia because I can become a bodyguard. So for me, I would say she's still S tier, although I will say slightly behind Luke. Nien Nunb is a really fun character to use. He surprisingly doesn't have a middle ability, so he doesn't really get bonuses for killing a bunch of people or anything like that. However, it is kind of mitigated by when he has his turret he can put down, which will upgrade when it does damage, so he himself doesn't get any benefits, but his turret does. And his turret can get really broken if it's fully powered up and is actually dealing damage. But most of the time it doesn't get to that point because a lot of people that play this game kind of know that, so they won't let it get to that point. His other abilities, he has kind of a sniper rifle, which does a lot of damage. It doesn't really go through block, but it is good at killing troops from far away, and it does recharge really fast, so it's always nice to have, especially if you get a headshot in. It can deal a decent amount of damage to like an enemy Boba Fett or something like that. He also has a few landmines he can throw down. You kind of just throw them down either where you think an enemy will be, or even better, while you're running away from an enemy, which is kind of what he does a lot. You can throw up to maximum 3, but they are really good because you can just kind of throw them and run away, and you don't really have to worry about them. Enemies can shoot them to blow them up, but if you kind of put them in like a corner of a door or something like that, then they won't really be seen, so you can kind of just take free damage. It is noted that Bossk can kind of just sprint straight past them because he is really fast, so he won't make them explode. Well, he will make them explode, but he won't take damage from it. So that is just one kind of thing to note. But overall, I would say that his abilities in general are pretty good. He kind of falters a little bit when playing online, just because a lot of people kind of know how to counter him. Because his main thing is to set up traps, and if you kind of destroy them or just kind of move around them, you can pretty much ignore a lot of what he's doing. An interesting thing to note with Nien Nunb is he has a kind of a weird role. As you can see, he kind of just goes flying across the map. I don't really know why. Some heroes have different rolling mechanics than others. So like you couldn't do this with Han or Leia, but you can literally just like, if it's this map, go across the entire map with a single roll. Like you'll literally go flying across the map. I don't know how it works, but it's pretty cool. Despite Nien Nunb being one of the most fun characters to play, I think there's just a lot of counterplay available to him. He isn't really great at dealing damage unless you max out his turret and you're shooting someone with the bombs and everything. He's certainly really fun to play, but I really wouldn't pick him. I'm going to throw him in C tier. He's definitely the worst one so far. But if you want to try it, you can. It's just, he's really not the best hero in the game.
Hello.
Lando is the first hero with the thermal scope, which lets him kind of see enemies from afar if they're trying to camouflage in or something like that, which is just kind of interesting to point out. I don't think it makes that crazy of a difference, but it's pretty interesting. His middle ability lets him do crit blasts, so either if he uses his shot or his left ability, which is like a superpower shot, which is really, really good. It's really broken. It can almost one-shot certain heroes in the game. It'll increase the chance of it doing even more damage, which is just kind of nuts. His right ability kind of overcharges blasters and sets all the abilities back on cooldown, so if you're surrounded by people, you can just use it and they can't really do anything because all their abilities get refreshed and all their blasters go on cooldown. So that's just kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. Lando's middle ability is a shocking trap, so as you can see there, just killed that guy. But an interesting side use, which is honestly more of a main use, at least for me, is you can throw it off in the corner of a map where no one would go to, and it completely makes you disappear from the minimap. So anyone who would be trying to look for you, you could just throw that down, and now they can't even see you. There's even a little thing in there, like the little check mark that lets you know if it's active or not. So yeah, I would just use that in the corner, go hide somewhere, wait for them to get in view, and then just use your power blast, charge it all the way up to 6 there, and it'll give you your best odds in dealing max damage to a hero, almost one-shot in them. It's actually crazy. It's ridiculous. Now, Lando's kind of interesting because a lot of the people I use him are really, really good, but there's also some people that are really, really bad with him. He kind of has a very high skill gap to learn just because there's like the disappearing from the map and using the power blasts at like the specific time and moments like that. Because of that, I'm going to throw him in A tier. He's really good. However, you could be someone like Luke or Leia, which would be more benefiting to the team. He's definitely not a bad pick. Like, if I see him on my team, I definitely don't really get upset, but I would prefer Luke or Leia. He's certainly not a bottom hero, though. He's really good, though. Chewbaca honestly might be one of the best heroes, if not the best hero in the game. Almost all of his abilities and his middle ability are absolutely insane. So Chewbacca's main ability is his bowcaster shot, and it's already an explosive shot, meaning blocking heroes still take damage, and you can still do some kind of damage if they're hiding behind cover and they're just standing right there on the edge. It's actually crazy. His middle ability only helps him in the fact that if you get a bunch of kills with him, it'll make the amount of shots go up. So if you kill like 4 enemies, it'll go up to 2, 3, even 4 shots. His right ability can almost double that to like I think like 7 or 8. So he goes from like 1 shot to 8 shots, and he just does a massive amount of damage. Like even like the tank heroes would have to retreat from him if he's like at his maximum damage, because he just outputs so much damage. His middle ability is also really good. It gives him like a tank boost, like he can tank so much more damage, along with the alloys around him can also tank so much damage. The only ability that isn't great is his right ability, where he kind of ground slams. It's kind of glitchy, like as you can see right here. It doesn't really work sometimes if you jump, but it's still decent if you have to kill like 5 people around you, or you just got to do a last little bit to the heroes because your gun is on cooldown. He genuinely just has some of the best abilities and gun in the game. It's if Lando is crazy, this is even crazier. Chewbacca has a little bit of a skill gap, though not as much as the other heroes. You'd want to use your explosive shot, like, pointing down towards an enemy or in an enclosed space, just so it's like all of it, all the shots have the chance to hit the enemy, and just, like, to max out everything. But he's much easier to use, especially because he's very tanky and some maps are close quarters. I genuinely think that in most cases, he's better than Luke, and I think for right now, S tier, #1 hero, I think Chewbacca is just a crazy hero.
Reckless, aggressive, and undisciplined. Pretty much sums it up.
Jyn Erso is honestly a pretty big disappointment for hero for me. It was the last update they added, so the last DLC and the last hero they added before they stopped updating the game. And she's not the greatest. She has, as a right ability, a melee, which isn't even her only melee, so she has 2 melee she could do. Her middle ability just gives her more of those right ability melees, which I don't even think can, or they can be blocked, meaning she can just kind of swing and do nothing. Her left ability is a machine gun, which is decent, but like you would just keep that on, like you would just use that instead of the pistol that she spawns with. I don't really see, so already 2 of her abilities are mediocre at best and kind of useless. Her top ability is pretty good. Like her top ability does throw grenade, which blinds and weakens them. It works on yourself, as you can see here, which is like crazy. Like you can't see anything if you were an enemy, but it's really her only good ability. The damage buffs like that you do after you throw it is really good for support. If you're like Luke or something and you push, it can just do absolute crazy amounts of damage. But if I was going for support, I would just pick Leia because she's better in almost every way. I don't really have a lot to say about Jyn Erso because she's honestly just a really mediocre hero. Whenever I see her on my team, I'm kind of like, oh, this person probably just re-downloaded or picked this game out and doesn't really know what they're doing and is just kind of picking whatever. I'm not really looking forward to her on my team. Jyn Erso concludes the heroes in Battlefront 2015, and honestly, she is just a disappointment if I'm being honest. She's really not the greatest. I really don't have a lot to say because she's just terribly mediocre. I know D tier is kind of worse than mediocre, but I just don't see her being really useful in a lot of situations. The only time I'll play her is if I'm bored and I'm just kind of trying to mess around or something like that. But I would never really pick her expecting to win or expecting to be like, oh yeah, I can get a bunch of kills with her. She's just really not that great at the game.
You will know the power of the dark side.
Darth Vader is the first of the villains I'll be talking about, and he has 3 abilities along with the middle ability. His middle ability, seen above the health, is essentially a defense buff where the more enemies he kills, the more defense and damage negation he has, which essentially lets him to take less damage, which is really good if you're killing people and then you're going up against something like Chewbacca where they do a lot of damage. His main attack is a simple left and right, just like Luke's, so it isn't anything special, and the block is also on a cooldown, meaning that even if you're not taking any direct hits from it, you still eventually run out of block. It's like that for everyone in the game. I really don't know why. His left ability chokes an enemy, so if you're any trooper, you die immediately to it, but if you're a hero, it kind of just stuns you. You don't really get into a choke animation. His right ability throws the lightsaber, which does a lot of damage, but if you're really close to an enemy, it kind of dodges it like you saw there, like it didn't really work for some reason. But it does kind of have a homing aspect, so as long as you're like looking in the general direction, it throws pretty far, so it'll deal a decent amount of damage to almost anything you throw. His top ability is the same as Luke's, so it's a heavy swing. The heavy swing will block a break, or break the block, sorry. So it completely shatters the block and you can get a free hit in, which is pretty nice. I would say he's a really good hero. I think he's one of the best villains for sure. He's the only lightsaber hero on the villain side, so I would say that you'd probably want to have him. Coming over to our tier list, I definitely think he's a top hero in the game. I wouldn't say he's quite as good as Chewbacca, but I think he's definitely better than Luke and Leia. So for now, I'm going to put him here. I think he's really good attacking, really good defensive, and his abilities are longer range. They're all pretty useful, so I think that definitely makes him deserve that S tier.
I will show them the true nature of the Force.
Palpatine is a really interesting villain because he has a lot of stuff you kind of have to be paying attention for. On top of the 3 abilities, the ability above his health and stamina bar, he has the stamina bar along with a block. So there's kind of a lot you have to do when playing Palpatine to make sure you're kind of using him to the best of your ability. His stamina bar, which is right above the health bar, it's the white thing you can see going down right now, essentially works by you shoot your lightning out and eventually he'll run out and you'll have to give him a second to kind of recharge it. The middle ability literally just increases the duration it takes to need to refill on the lightning, and it also increases the amount of stamina you have overall. So if you're killing a bunch of people and you can now go and target a tankier hero because your lightning will last longer and you won't have to recharge it as much. So that's just something pretty interesting you want to keep in mind when you're using him. Onto his normal abilities, his right ability essentially works as Luke's dash, except it doesn't do damage, so whatever direction you're looking in, he'll kind of do the dash, and it's a nice easy way to escape. The only thing is that if he gets hit with like a lightsaber while he's doing it, the dash kind of glitches out, and you won't actually move where you're going. So if you have a Luke chasing you, make sure you block before you use the dash. Palpatine's left ability is a chain lightning, so it'll shoot electricity out further than your normal lightning will reach, and it will kill multiple enemies instead of just dealing damage to one. An interesting note with this left ability is that it specifically works against Luke, so if he's blocking or even if he isn't blocking and you hit him, it'll stun him for like a good few seconds, so if you need to use that before leaving to heal or whatever, you could do that as well. Palpatine also has a heal like Leia's. It's a red one, so it isn't quite as good as the yellow one, but it is still really good. And also, please, if you're using Palpatine, heal your other teammates. Palpatine's last kind of special trait about him is that he, like Leia, has the option to spawn bodyguards, which are like the red royal guards that you see in the movies. So they're really good, they're better than the troops, and just like the other bodyguards, they can't heal on their own, so you'd want to just hope that you're getting good teammates when you're playing Palpatine. But Palpatine is a really good hero if you're using him very efficiently, because he has the heal, he's decent with mobility, his damage is pretty decent, he's good at countering Luke sometimes, and the bodyguards are just a really great source of extra damage if you're in need of that. Palpatine is a really, really good hero. He's definitely an S tier. I know there's a lot in S right now, but for the actual lineups, you'd want to have a lot in S. He's definitely better than Leia. I wouldn't quite put him at Luke's level because Luke can usually beat Palpatine in a 1v1, although Palpatine does have the support aspect like Leia does. I just think Palpatine's a little bit better by himself. He does have a lot of stats to watch out for, like his abilities, his stamina, and everything like that. So he is a really good hero. I would definitely use him with Darth Vader, and together they're really good along with the hero that we're going to be going over soon. So right now, he's definitely an S tier, and let's move on. Boba Fett, like Palpatine, has a lot of stats you kind of want to watch out for. So Boba Fett has the 3 abilities, the middle ability, and the stamina like Palpatine would. However, instead of actual stamina, it's jetpack fuel. So the aim button for any other blaster hero is Boba Fett's jetpack fuel, and you fly up by pressing L2 if you're on PlayStation or whatever the button is on Xbox or PC. So you kind of can't aim the normal way. However, you can still aim with Boba Fett by pressing down on the right joystick. I don't quite know the control on PC or Xbox or anything like that. I would imagine for Xbox it's something similar. Boba Fett doesn't really have a middle ability necessarily, or a top ability, sorry. Instead, that's kind of just where the jetpack is. However, he does have a left ability, which is a flamethrower. So if you're up close and your blaster's overheated, you can use the flamethrower to deal a bunch of damage. And you can even fly over somebody so they have a harder time shooting you while you're using the flamethrower. It's a nice combo. His right ability is a wrist rocket. It will usually one-shot most troops and deal a decent amount of damage to heroes, even if they're blocking. An interesting note about the rocket is that it'll go through Leia's shield. So if your Leia is behind her shield or Luke is really low waiting for Leia to heal her, you can still get damage off by shooting the rocket. You don't have to worry about it. Coming over to our tier list, Boba Fett is a decent hero, though I don't think he's great because his health isn't the greatest, and if he takes a lot of damage through Han's lucky shot or something like that, he'll fall to the ground, or Luke Skywalker hits him with a lightsaber, he'll also fall to the ground. So he's very prone to damage. His abilities are good and not the greatest, and honestly, if I see him being picked, I don't think that they're the greatest people in the game. So on average, I think C tier is probably the best place for him. Vader and Palpatine are definitely the better options if you're going for good villains. Boba Fett is an absolute last resort if you don't own the DLCs. So if you're playing on the villains team, definitely go for Vader or Palpatine if you're trying to win. If you're trying to have fun, Boba Fett's pretty fun to play, but if you're trying to win, I really would stay away from him. Gredo is certainly a fun hero to play. His middle ability is a lot more complicated than most of them, because instead of a natural kind of buff, it is realistically, it kind of gives its own ability every single time you level it up, and each of them have their own kind of separate uses. So by default, his left ability is a Dioxis grenade, which you can throw, and it'll deal damage through walls, through ceilings, stuff like that, which is kind of good to know. As you level it up, it turns into a thermal detonator, an impact grenade, and then a really improved thermal detonator that explodes and does a crazy amount of damage. So it's just kind of fun to know that. His middle ability kind of scans everything around him, so it outlines the enemies, as you can see here. His right ability is good for dealing damage to like 3 people, instantly killing them. It also prevents Luke from blocking for a minute. It kind of stuns him, and then he can't block, so you can get some shots off. Something to note about Gredo specifically, though this kind of does work for all of the blaster heroes, is that the more shots you hit, the more damage you do, and it's really good on Greedo's blaster. He starts to do a crazy amount of damage. That's just good to know when you're playing him. The damage stacks up. His grenade is really good. He's overall a pretty fun character to play. Although all of Greedo's abilities aren't necessarily terrible, I think his gun is really good. His health is pretty lackluster, and he is prone to taking a lot of damage very quickly. So that being said, I think he's probably around the same tier as Han, maybe a little bit better because you can actually do some damage with him. I would say that he's certainly one of the more fun heroes to use in this game, but he isn't quite the best just because of the fact that his health isn't the best and he doesn't have the best mobility options. He's pretty fast and you can roll with him and stuff like that, but he can't block or anything like that. So if you're kind of in a 1v1 with Luke and you don't have any, like, your grenade isn't upgraded or something like that, you're more likely to just lose that fight because Luke just has better options against you. And if you're fighting something like someone like Chewbaca, it's kind of even worse because he can tank so much. But he's still definitely not one of the worst heroes in the game, so B tier is a nice place for him.
I can't believe I'm getting paid for this.
Dengar is honestly one of my least seen characters in this game when I'm playing online. I really don't see him a lot. He's not the worst, but he's certainly not the best. His middle ability is pretty good, giving him extra defense against enemies. His melee is actually pretty interesting because instead of the average like shoulder check most of them do, he kind of kicks his foot. He spawns in with a machine gun, so he can shoot fast, but is kind of inaccurate from longer ranges. His middle ability kind of turns his machine gun into like a minigun. It makes it way more inaccurate, but he shoots a lot faster and can do a lot more damage if someone's like really close to you. His left and right abilities are very similar. His left ability is kind of like a Han shoulder charge, so he can just kind of swing and deal a bunch of damage to enemies like that. And his left ability is like a proximity rush, so he'll run, throw bombs, and then you can kind of run out of there and then the bombs will explode. I don't think they damage you, but you can just use it to get out of there and they'll stick to enemies, so if you're just kind of in the general vicinity, it should hit them. Really good for stunning like Luke. There's a lot of characters that kind of counter Luke, but his bomb rush is pretty good against Luke. And his left hook, from what I've seen, although I haven't seen it recently, can sometimes one-shot Luke. It's a glitch, I think, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know if they patched that maybe. I haven't seen that in years, so I really don't know. Bossk is the second hero in this game to have a kind of thermal vision. However, his works a little bit differently than Lando's. He kind of gets his own ability. However, it's a little bit more than just thermal vision because the thermal vision makes him a little bit faster than if he didn't have it on, along with his abilities recharging faster. His right ability lets him deal toxic damage along with jumping, so if you time it perfectly, you can kind of jump away along with leaving die access behind. You don't necessarily have to play with the thermal vision, going back to that, but it probably would be better if you did because of the increased ability cooldown times. Bossk also has his own unique trait, is that every enemy he kills, he gets health from, and that's his middle trait, so the more enemies you kill, the more health you'll get, so it goes from like 2 to 5, I believe, at the absolute most. Bosk's left ability is just a bunch of grenades, so he'll start shooting grenades a bunch, and it is pretty good if like Luke is blocking or something like that, or you don't have a direct line of sight, but you still can shoot people by arcing the grenades over. So it's always useful to use those, though if you're in kind of a direct head-on-head sight with somebody, I would just use the blaster, because if you get headshots, it does more damage per second than the grenades. At least I feel like it does when I'm using it. But altogether, his abilities are pretty decent, so I would definitely use him if you're trying to win the game. Bossk is easily an S tier. I would put him below Palpatine and above Leia. I think that's a really nice way in ending it out there, because Bosk's ability is really good. He can go around really fast and deal damage. I believe he's the second fastest character in the game behind Luke, when Luke's speed ability is absolutely maxed out. So he really is good for speed, and his decent at damage, and he get health on kills and health on damage and all that kind of good stuff. So I would be using him if you're trying to win the game. He's also a very fun character to use. They all are. So if you're trying to get the game to be an absolute win, you should go for Chewbaca, Luke, or Leia if you're on the heroes, or Vader, Palpatine, or Bossk if you're on the villains. If you want to switch it up for the heroes, you could go for Lando, and if you're trying to switch it up for the villains, what we'll get to in a second, would be Director Krennic.
Soon I will be the Emperor's closest confidant.
To conclude all of our heroes and villains, we end off on Director Krennic. Now, Director Krennic has a lot of things to pay attention to. His health, along with above his health, his middle ability is just a defend thing, so you can just get more defense with people around you along with himself. He has a very unique gun. It's kind of a revolver, and I really like the UI for it. Like, it spins around and stuff, which is pretty cool. Just thought I'd mention that really quickly. His middle ability deploys a shield like Leia's. However, it can not only move around, but it also deploys like a Dioxis defense, so it'll deploy like a poison gas if enemies are near. It doesn't damage you, so it's fine. His left ability shoots kind of like an armor piercer, which is really interesting. It turns the revolver into like a one-shot explosive gun, so it's important that you know that it only does one shot before you have to reload it again. It block breaks Luke's block, and it also makes other enemies weaker. So Director Krennic is a really good supporting asset because his right ability heals himself for 10 health, so even if he's at 100 health, it overheals to 110, and for troops, not including the bodyguards, it goes up to 200 health, although a kind of interesting glitch is that it'll deplete slowly for the soldiers, not the heroes, and it actually starts to deplete your own health, not just the bonus health, down to 50, which is just really weird, something I've noticed when playing and getting that buff when someone else was Director Krennic. Director Krennic's secondary ability, which isn't really stated, is he kind of has bodyguards like Palpatine's, though they aren't that great. They have machine guns along with the rocket launcher, and they do have a thermal detonator, so they're pretty good. They have less health than the hero bodyguards from Leia and Palpatine, but they are still definitely better than just a base troop. So it's definitely important to keep that in mind. If you're just trying to if someone's already on Palpatine and you want to do something that kind of does what Palpatine does, you could hop on Krennic, and it gives the soldiers on your team extra support for yourself, and he's also just good at supporting. You don't really want to go up and get up close and personal because he doesn't really have the stuff for that, but if you stay behind, snipe, just kind of be a supporting asset, he's definitely a pretty good hero to have. Concluding as our last hero, Director Krennic definitely deserves an A tier, probably below Lando, but he's definitely a solid A tier. He's really good at being that supporting role like Palpatine, though I think he's better at supporting than Palpatine because Palpatine has more offensive potential. He's a little worse than Lando, but definitely better than Gredo and Han, so I think he definitely deserves his A tier spot with bodyguards like Leia and Palpatine, so they are slightly worse, like mentioned before. I think he's just overall a pretty solid support piece. By himself, he's not the greatest, but if you have confident teammates, it's pretty nice to make it nice, easy layup with the support at the back lines there. I would rather go Bossk, but I'm not upset if I'm playing Vader or Palpatine and I see Krennic on the team. So, he's not the best, but good players could definitely get some really good value out of him. So, before I move on to the online play section of the video, I figured I could rank the 3 reinforcement bodyguard options just based off of, how good I think they are in terms of how useful you would be playing them. So, I'm just going to grab this random thing from Battlefront 2 here. Let's just grab the Flame Trooper. Let's say that the average person is probably a C tier, like this is what you are as a default trooper. I think that's a fair ranking because some are pretty good, some are pretty bad. I would rank the Leia and Palpatine bodyguards as S tier. They are really good at dealing damage. They have a lot of health, not as much as a hero, but more than a trooper for sure. They are good at dealing damage, and their rocket launcher abilities are pretty good. I would rank the Death Trooper a little bit lower than them just because of the fact that they have less health than the other two. However, their thermal detonator along with their middle ability, which the other two don't have, is to just kind of continuously be able to fire, which is really nice, but that extra health definitely misses out, and their gun isn't the absolute greatest, but they're still better than the base troop for sure. So I just figured I'd do this quick little ranking on these 3 just because if you're deciding between the Sith Trooper and the Death Trooper, I would always go for the Death Trooper just because his damage output is way higher. I know for the Rebel Alliance side it doesn't really matter because there's only one, but I figured I'd just make this little ranking here because I just want to make sure these 3 are absolutely better than the default one, and you should go for them if you can. Actually, the final little thing I do here before I go into the online stuff, I just wanted to categorize all the heroes, including just the default soldier along with the hero bodyguards, by how their rolling mechanics work. So everyone up at the top can't roll, or in some degree, so Chewbaca can crouch, obviously, but they can't roll like the other heroes can. Everyone in the second row here can roll and jump at the same time, so if you roll and press the jump button in like a quick succession, you can kind of get an extra speed mobility boost. And the can glitch roll across the map tier, you cannot jump while you're rolling. These two are separate, like the rolling mechanics are separate. I really don't know what the developers did to make them differently. But if you position yourself on a slope and you roll facing up the slope, you will go flying across the map, sometimes a lot further than others. But if you need to get away, that's just like a nice little thing to keep in mind. Like, you can, if you're playing Lando or Nien Nunb or any of the bodyguards, you can glitch roll across like the entire map. So just keep that in mind. It's a deep dive, so you're gonna get all this niche information. I genuinely just want to make this tiny segment right here. So if you're playing this bodyguard in online mode and you get choked by Darth Vader, you can still melee him. Like you see right there, that yellow crosshair, you can still do damage as a hero there. So just keep that in mind. It's again something you probably won't use 95% of the time, but if you are getting choked and you're right next to him and he's on like 1 health, this has happened to me before where I get meleeed to death even though I'm choking him. So just keep that in mind. I'm genuinely just going to do kind of a very brief section for the online play itself, mostly because of the fact that this video is already over 40 minutes long, and if I'm being honest, I don't want to make this like an hour-and-a-half video. I already went over most of the heroes, so I'm just going to go over some kind of niche little information. So, obviously, there are the known glitches like the roll glitch or the glitch of meleeing while in Darth Vader's choke. However, there are some maps you can kind of mesh through a little bit. I'm not really going to show them because, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of too lazy to not find them, but do them because it's be like 3 seconds per clip. And also because it kind of ruins the game a little bit if you just go and hide in a mesh corner. So that you can do it in some of the maps, not all of them. Like this map here doesn't have a map to mesh in, but there are a few, and I just want to make that known. Also, one glitch you can do with the bodyguards, I just want to say if you do it, you're actually the worst player to like exist in this game. There's a glitch where there's one gun that you can have as just a foot soldier that has an alt fire, and it's kind of like an explosive shot, and you can spawn in as a bodyguard and just spam the alt shot, and it like instantly kills all the heroes. It is by far, if it was a hero, it would be the most broken hero in the game. It wouldn't even be close. I just want to say, if you play like that, you are weird. You are just like genuinely ruining the game. It's not even fun. I don't even have the gun unlocked to do the glitch, so I just want to say, if you do that, you're absolutely weird. Now, genuinely the last little detail I'm going to do before I end this video, I know the online section is very short, you're just kind of getting a sense here. Well, actually, I'm going to do two things. So, as you can see, if you want to play online, in order to win, you have to kill all 3 heroes to get a point. And in order to win, it's first to 5. So the first person to 5 points wins the game, and it's a 6v6 game mode. However, there's only 3 heroes. So if you have to pick a hero one round, you'll be a soldier next round like you see here. So in that last round I was Dengar, now I'm just a basic foot soldier going around, and it's like that on the other team. So it's 3 foot soldiers, 3 heroes, and if the lobby's maxed out anyway, and it'll be like that, and it's first to 5. Hero lives are the only ones that matter, so you as a soldier can die as much as you want. I'm using the back to heal cards. I don't really feel like getting into the cards because it's not that important. It's just customizable things. There's a lot of them. I don't have all of them unlocked, and I'm going to do the same thing with the blasters. There's a lot of blasters you can unlock. Some of them you can't really unlock anymore because people don't play the DLCs. Anyway, a little nice niche detail I want to go over here, just because I said it'd be a deep dive, so I'd give you at least one thing that I honestly don't see a lot of people. What am I talking about? I have never seen anyone talk about this for good reason. It's just a tiny little useless detail. It just kind of goes to show like how thoughtful and how inspired these devs were to make this game. It's a great game. You should, if you have however much money it is to pay for it, or you just have it uninstalled and want to give it another go. If you play on PlayStation, you can genuinely still find lobbies for heroes versus villains. It is a lot of the same people, and they are really sweaty, but they do still get lobbies. So if you want to just re-download it for a night and play, then you can do that. Anyway, the tiny little niche detail I'm going to end the video off on is if the heroes get 2 wins over on the villains on this specific map, that Star Destroyer, that second further away Star Destroyer will explode. It is completely useless detail, but I noticed it. I thought it would be pretty interesting to say. I mean, is it really that interesting? No, but I just want to show you. I have my map knowledge. I have my game knowledge on this game. I've played it for nearly 1,000 hours. My PlayStation says over 1,000, but the game itself says 800. But I'd like to end the video there. I thought that'd be pretty interesting to make a video on this. So anyway, wrapping up the thoughts here. I thought I'd make this video because I have seen people come back to this game, talk about how good it looks and whatnot and whatever. But I figured I can just make a better video because I genuinely have so many hours on this game. Anyways, I apologize for the really long video if you made it here. I really do appreciate it if you watched this whole thing. It took me a lot of hours to actually get all the footage and edit it all and voice over it all. I know it's not perfect. This is my first really long, really heavily edited video. I'm gonna do it. If this video can get 1,000 likes, which is absolutely absurd because I really don't feel like doing another one of these, but maybe I'll be surprised. 1,000 likes. I will do a video like this for the second Battlefront. I have more hours on that game than I do on this one, so if by some miracle this video gets 1,000 likes, I'm not expecting it, I will do a second video on the second game. Covering all of the heroes. I might even do all the reinforcements, stuff like that. There's a lot more in that game than there is in this one. So if it does happen, definitely you're gonna have to give me some more time to edit that down. But anyway, I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. I really appreciate it, guys, and I'll see you.